Ya, setiap hari pukul 6 petang. Assalamualaikum, salam muhibah bersama saya Syed dan rakan setugas saya.
Johnson.
Saya selalu salah sebut James. Dah kenapa sebut James? Kali ni betul.
JC
Johnson. JC bersama ke udara pada waktu ini. Saban hari insyaAllah pukul 6 petang. Cuma ada beberapa hari sebelum ni kita bermula pukul 5.30 disebabkan oleh jadual tetamu kita. Walau macam mana pun kami hargai jika anda boleh like, boleh subscribe saluran ini untuk Malaysia 360 sehingga hari pengundian. Up until the 19th of November and maybe 2 or 3 days after that, waiting for the cabinet, announcement.
In case they announce me.
You never know. That wouldn't be case unless you're a senator yourself.
Oh well. Anyway, who have we got this evening?
Yap, kita ada tetamu yang menarik secara dalam talian dan juga di studio. Kita perkenalkan mana? Online dulu atau studio dulu? Which one do you prefer? Studio dulu sebab dia dekat dengan kita. Dia sedang membaca tu dan dia bawa buku. Katanya itu brand dia. Akhramsyah Sanusi in the house. Jadi kita berjumpa lagi. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi. Terima kasih Akhramsyah Sanusi, Ketua Biro Penyelidik PEJUANG, tetapi tidak bertanding. Cuma itu bukan tajuk kita. Hot seat nanti kita bincang. Akram dan siapa? Jonson bersama kita secara dalam talian.
We also have Dr. Michael Jeyakumar from Parti Socialist Malaysia, Chairman of Parti Socialist Malaysia, former MP of Sungai Siput.
Yeah. We expect your name to be in Sungai Siput, Doctor.
Yes. It's okay. I think you can still contribute in many ways, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So who do we...
It's up to you, Jonson.
Okay.
You go ahead with Doctor perhaps. Maybe he's waiting for us online.
So can you tell us the full story? What happened between PKR and PSM insofar as the Sungai Siput seat is concerned?
Well, PSM requested that we be given one parliament seat, preferably in Sungai Siput, but also open to other parliamentary seats, and maybe one or two Dun seats. That's our request to but after some negotiations, that this didn't come through. And finally, they're not able to give us any seat at all. So that's what happened.
Okay.
Right. So there was a bit of tension between the two parties, and yet I read that that PSM has very gentlemanly said, okay, we are not going to disturb PH seats, and rather you have now chosen Rembau and Air Kuning. Can you very quickly tell us the rationale behind the selection of these two seats?
Okay, thanks, Johnson. I think the main thing is PSM needs to participate in the elections in one way or another, because we want to put forward the kind of policy agendas, the kind of issues that we will bring up if we get to be in Parliament or in the State Assembly. So we need to participate and put forward our manifesto and our ideas. But at the same time, let's say if I were to stand in Sungai Siput, it's going to be a tough seat now between opposition and PN. And there's a high chance that if I participate there, both PKR and PSM would lose. And supporters would be very upset and disappointed. So to avoid that, we thought we better stay out, because winning team corner would be, even 1-1 would be a tough fight this time around, and winning team corner would be very difficult. So we thought we better stay out.
Dr. Jeyakumar, jadi apa peluangnya untuk PSM menang di Rembau dalam konteks parlimen? Itu pun hot seat juga Rembau, dan juga di Air Kuning itu. Peluangnya bagaimana? Ataupun ini hanya nak cuba-cuba saja? Apa sikap PSM bila menyertai dan memilih satu parlimen dan satu DUN ini?
Well, kadang-kadang miracle boleh berlaku kan. Tapi tapi ini dua seat ini adalah seat yang telah dimenang oleh Barisan Nasional UMNO specifically untuk 30-40 tahun yang lalu. So for the first timer to go in dan menang, saya ingat agak susah lah. Tapi dia bagi kita satu peluang untuk memamerkan semua program kita di peringkat parlimen, peringkat DUN, if we win, apakah isu-isu yang kita akan bawa ke parlimen dan ke DUN. So this gives us a platform. Dan the practice of PSM, kita tanding di tempat, kita akan terus dari situ menang atau kalah. Dan kita akan buka service center, kita akan turun ke Padang, kita akan ambil isu rakyat, you know. So it will be a good entry point to a constituency. Dan kita akan teruskan kerja over the issue.
Ya. Dr. Jeyakumar, seingat saya dalam konteks pendekatan PSM, sebelum ini PSM apabila mengemukakan calonnya, ia mestilah calon di peringkat itu yang sudah servis beberapa lama barulah dia dianggap layak. Dan saya ingat ini satu benchmark yang tinggi diletakkan oleh PSM. Tak mudah dalam budaya hari ini yang campak pergi lari daripada audition pergi ke Tambun semua ni. Adakah itu masih menjadi resepinya bagi Rembau dan Air Kuning ini?
Ya, kita dapat kita lebih kan kita konteks dalam kerusi-kerusi dan menyandang oleh PH. So kita kena cari tempat di mana kita PH kita menyandang, tapi juga kita ada satu presence di situ. So macam di Air Kuning, the person yang tanding itu calon kita ialah Bawani. Dia seorang yang telah dilahir di Air Kuning. Dan sejak 2015 kita telah buka dia punya pejabat pejuang di Campak yang bersebelah. Dan dia sudah ambil beberapa kes daripada Air Kuning dan dia sedang kendalikan. And Cikgu Gina adalah seorang daripada Atau. Adalah satu kawasan di dalam Rembau. Rembau ada 4 and Kerusi adalah satu daripada 4 itu. Dan memang ada pejabat PSM itu saya ingat sejak tahun 2010 ke memang ada orang di situ. Mereka bukan calon yang parachute lah yang terus masuk.
Itu standard piawat benchmark.
Yes.
Minimum standard.
I think that is very, very good. We would like to go to Akhramsyah, but just one final question. You mentioned a couple of times you want to bring certain issues into Parliament and Dewan Undangan Negeri. What are those issues? What is so important that you want to raise these issues in Parliament?
Okay, the issues that we would like to bring in Parliament include many things, but one is I think we need to bring in an old age pension. You know, at this point in time, a lot of people have the EPF savings depleted. Something like $100 million EPF savings withdrawn during the COVID period. And anyway, EPF only covers about the 6 million out of the 16 million people who are in the labor force. A lot of people who are contract workers, people who are small businessmen, the peasants, the farmers, the self-employed, don't have EPF. So we need something. Many people, including workers, don't have enough EPF to sustain it. And so old age becomes very difficult, very harsh. There are not enough savings. So we are going to suggest a pension scheme of $500 a month for all those who are not in government pension or social pension from the age of 65, automatically. It costs about 10 to 12 billion per year. So I think it's something that will give a lot of comfort, a lot of support for our elderly population. So issues like this, where you want to expand the safety net, so this is one issue that we want to kind of bring up. Now, of course, there are other issues I can bring up with you, but I'm not sure you have time to go feature on them. But issues like that, social protection for the Malaysian public.
Thank you for that. So that will be the segue to Akhramsyah. I am, if you look at the color of my T-shirt,
Bersatu supporter.
Bersatu.
Which one is it?
Pejuang go. Pejuang. Okay. Right. Seriously, I think we need universal basic services. What do you think of that policy or that structure of providing for a safety net?
I tend to agree because you see, there's actually ongoing debate, not just in Malaysia but worldwide, regarding whether or not there's a need of a universal basic income or universal basic services.
Yes.
The issue with universal basic income, though, if you want to introduce it into a country like ours, is that the problem of the usage of that income and the necessities that need to be acquired with that income, paired with the fact that we have a problem with the imminent collapse. It might sound sensationalist, but I would say imminent collapse of our education and our healthcare systems.
Banyak lagi.
In the healthcare system, actually, it's a bit more tragic than most people in the urban areas presuppose. It's bad enough that in the urban areas we're seeing massive queues already in the urban hospitals. But in like my own the constituency I contested before in Jerai, my kampung, Yan. A lot of people know you go to Hospital Yan really to get referred back to Sungai Petani or referred to Alostar. But it's supposed to be planned to become not just a hospital but eventually specializing into physiotherapy. You see, but that never happened.
Right.
And if you start talking about equipment of the hospitals, when I was talking to the healthcare professionals in Yan at the time, some of the dialysis machines were actually past replacement date. You see, and that story, and they're actually using equipment that is too old that should have already been replaced, but they couldn't. And that results in it's the tragedy, of course, is that the people who are in worst need, the most need, are deprived of these services at the closest area. And can you imagine, of late, because of the pressures of the budget, elderly individuals or people who are less well off, they've had to go to these hospitals and queue, sometimes take half a day off from work that they cannot afford to take a day off on, to take medicine, but instead of taking 3 months, they can only take 1 month.
Akram, kita boleh jelaskan ini dengan panjang lebar. We can carry on discussing about this.
Sure.
Cumanya Malaysia di persimpangan ini kita memfokus kepada apa yang pragmatic towards PRU15. Menariknya kerana Akram tak bertanding. Saya harap Akram bertanding dan menang. Jadi dia boleh bawa benda ni dalam parlimen. Kerana saya sebutkan di sini, apa yang Akram sebutkan itu, walaupun ketua penyelidik Pejuang, tidak resonate dengan message Pejuang at large. Ini hanya datang daripada Akram as individually. Tapi semangat itu tidak terpercik di dalam kempen-kempen yang Pejuang lakukan.
Ini mungkin sebab
ada disconnect.
Ini mungkin sebab apa yang ditanya tadi itu khusus tentang university services. Tapi yang merampungi isu lebih besar, yakni isu keperluan rakyat menuju ke arah krisis kemelestarian ekonomi. Sebab kita sekarang memang dalam krisis kemelestarian ekonomi. Tapi kita punya social safety net ataupun jaringan keselamatan sosial untuk masyarakat Malaysia yang ada pun sekarang rapuh. Dan sepatutnya bukan saja diperbaiki tapi sepatutnya diperbaharui. Jadi mesej utama kita sekarang adalah apa rencana kerajaan baru dan apa yang kita nak bawa untuk masyarakat Malaysia untuk mengharungi ini. 2 tahun ni paling kurang kita nak harungi dan kemudian nak bina balik ekonomi negara selepas kita survive 2 tahun kehadapan kemelestarian ekonomi ini. Jadi kalau kita tengok apa yang diceritakan oleh parti-parti politik pun ada konsistensi tentang perlunya kita menyelesaikan masalah atau menangani masalah ekonomi. Tetapi kita tengok banyak parti-parti lain dia distracted tentang isu-isu lain. Itu
yang saya nak sebut. Semua parti membawa agenda yang kononnya UMNO kata kestabilan, PKR kata model baru. Sekarang Pejuang menyebutkan menangani universal basic needs. Tapi bagaimana Pejuang akan berbeza daripada yang lain-lain itu?
Kini saya tak maulah bocor kita manifesto sebab manifesto tak keluar lagi. Tapi antara idea-idea kita sekarang, kita kena buat rombakan secara langsung sistem pendidikan kita. Dan sebenarnya tempoh untuk kita buat perbaruan pun nak dekat. Dalam 2025 memang kena buat tukar pun perubahan itu. Tetapi kita macam stuck, kita macam jam. SPM kena buat masa umur 17. Kenapa umur 17? Kenapa pada umur 18 anak-anak kita masih tak sedia nak pergi kerja?
Betul.
Kalau negara lain tahap sama dengan SPM umur 15 dah selesai dah. Dan 2 tahun 16-17 tu sudah skill building yang mana-mana yang tak pergi universiti kan?
That's very similar. Your line of thinking is very similar to site studying. In terms of education, you want to speed it up. I don't want to jump into that right now, but 2 basic services or public services you mentioned, very important, health and education. Now, we should come back to our hot topic. Hot seats. Let's do a reverse way of looking or a different way of looking at hot seats. Normally we look at the personality. Wah, siapa bertanding? Zahid bertanding, Anwar bertanding. Rather, who are the people who will champion this kind of ideas? The people who are really competent about education, who are about health. Who are they from Pejuang?
I'll give an example. We have a problem with flooding
Yes.
in Malaysia, and because of that, our Ketua Pejuang Wanita Muda, Dr. Nashikin, who is an urban planning PhD
Okay.
from Japan,
Wow.
is actually contesting in Parlimen Ampang.
Oh, okay.
You see, so
Alright.
which is of course it's a hot seat.
Yes.
Because of the situation with
Right,
Rabi
right,
Rider,
right,
etc.
right, okay.
Now, we do have challenges because both
Of course.
the logo still not need to be recognized. But as far as her CV is concerned, the people at Ampang are very interested in her CV.
Right.
And in fact, we have always targeted her to go into Klang Valley.
Okay.
Because Klang Valley suits where her credentials are.
Okay.
And Klang Valley also suits the problem that's prevalent at the time area, which is flooding. So these are the feedback that we got from the people generally was this: if you have issues with regards to your brand, and this is true for any party because all brands are tarnished now, right? But in our case, because it's a new brand, you must make sure that there's strength in the candidate.
Yeah.
And strength in candidate also has a different connotation now. For candidates, it's no longer the question of we know him because he's a local. These are all sentiment. But there is the newer voters, especially the youngsters, they don't want politician.
Yes.
They don't want politician.
Yes.
So with for instance, Dr. Nash, we can repeat many other names like that. Well, for instance, Wan Azliana, our candidate for Batu, another hot seat.
Right.
Wan Azliana is not just an accomplished lawyer.
Yeah.
She comes from good pedigree because her late father used to be the chief of the appeals court,
Right.
Tan Sri Wan Annan, almarhum, and besides that, she actually has been championing social issues.
Right.
Family court issues, things like that. And she's done a lot of pro bono work in that
So
direction.
you've mentioned two, Ampang and Batu.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Shall we go back to
kita kembali bersama Dr. Jeyakumar.
Dr. Jeyakumar. So, from your perspective, okay, putting PSM aside, which do you think are the most critical seats in terms of? I see you all are leaning towards PH. So, which are the critical seats in terms of your allies in PH? If you could share that with us.
Well, I think Tambun is a very crucial seat for them. Yeah.
Granted for them.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough seat, because it's a Malay majority seat of 60% Malay. And, for the last 2 years, the Malay population has been having doubts about Pakatan Harapan being a safe party for them. They feel that a lot of Malays have come to feel that you can't trust Pakatan Harapan to look after, programs to help Malay poverty or Malay lack of participation in the SME sector, So that's the perception, and that's what led to the exodus of Malay voters from Pakatan in the Johor and the Malacca by-elections, the state elections. So that is something that Anwar will have to really address, because that's a fairly wide perception, I think, throughout the Malay population. So I think Anwar is being quite brave and is taking quite a big risk going to a seat like that.
What about your friends in DAP? Which are the hot seats from your perspective?
I think DAP is the support from the Chinese population for DAP remains quite high. I mean, though that many people are disappointed with something, they have no other choice, so they'll have to go DAP. So even we look at the by-elections, look at the state elections, Malacca and before we found that the Chinese majority seats where DAP is concentrated did fairly well. So I guess their marginal seats will be where the Chinese population isn't so large. I mean, it's less than 70%, 50%, then they have a problem.
Right,
But,
right.
Ya.
Yeah.
Dr. Jeyakumar, tadi juga mendengar apa yang Akram hujahkan. Soalan daripada Jonson tadi tentang universal basic needs, universal basic services. Halnya bila kita menuju kepada PRU 15, cara pengundi membuat keputusan bukan hanya soal isu dasar besar. Mereka akan lihat apa isu longkang tersumbat. Tapi kita bercakap nakkan satu sistem perubahan, reformasi. Bagaimana kita nak mengimbangi ini dalam kempen? Idea-idea besar yang cuba doktor bawakan, yang Akram, saya sebutkan tadi, kerana saya sebut, Akram juga sebutkan itu, saya tidak dengar hujah-hujah itu datang daripada pemimpin pejuang yang lain. Itu dia. Tetapi kita ada, orang menganggap PRU 15 ni adalah mother of all elections. Jumlah calon yang paling ramai. Tetapi selepas election ini, kita jangka akan hang parlimen juga. Jadi tidak boleh membereskan isu-isu besar yang kita sebutkan dalam rancangan ini. Bagaimana kita boleh menangani itu?
Saya rasa untuk pilihan raya, pengundi tengok isu-isu nasional tau. Dia tengok isu-isu yang siapa yang akan pegang kerajaan dan apakah polisi untuk saya, untuk bangsa saya, untuk agama saya. I think itulah isu-isu yang mereka pegang besar. Kalau jika kita tengok isu-isu macam servis, seperti servis kita, ada orang yang di situ, a lot of PSM candidates dalam election yang lalu memang buat banyak kerja di grassroots, undi, tapi tidak dipilih. So I think for elections, rakyat kita, dia tengok the big picture. Siapa akan jadi Perdana Menteri? Siapa akan kumpulkan kerajaan? Dan apakah dia punya persepsi dengan parti itu?
Okay, Dr. Jeyakumar, if I may just very quickly follow up with a question, because what you said about the Perdana Menteri, you mentioned a couple of times. I recall in our first episode, Tian Chua was playing down the role of the Perdana Menteri. He's talking about national consensus. But I actually disagree. I was kind of polite the other day. Do you agree that the leader makes a lot of difference? And the part two of that question is, who do you see has that kind of leadership quality that can bring Malaysia out of this rut?
Okay. Yes, I think in Malaysia, a lot of power in the hands of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister determines the cabinet. He appoints the ministers, and he can also remove them whenever he wishes to. In Malaysia, there is too much concentration. You have a large say in the selection of the judges. You have a large say in the selection of the SPRM, SPR. I mean, everything is by the Yang di-Puan Agong, but at the advice of the Prime Minister, and basically it means Prime Minister has a lot of power in that. So yes, that makes a huge difference. This is something, if you want to democratize Malaysia, we've got to look at how we can find a way in which we can remove part of that power. Things like, for example, the selection of the Chief Justice, the selection of the SPR, the selection of SPRM, all the institutions that can check and balance the executive shouldn't be under the power of the executive. It should be maybe a bipartisan committee in Parliament and maybe something else, some other mechanism. So I think, yes, the PM has a tremendous power.
Okay. Dr. Jeyakumar, if I may stop you there, maybe it's difficult for you to answer the second part of the question because you're leaning, PSM is leaning towards PH. Let us ask Akram.
I wanted to ask him a question.
Yes. It is, we heard that Mahathir is prepared to go for the hat-trick, right? So, okay, if he, PEJUANG doesn't become the government, who do you think should be the Prime Minister to lead Malaysia out of this rut?
Okay, let's speak plainly. Our official line has always been that we do not nominate our Prime Minister. It is the media that keeps on asking Tun Mahathir To the point where Tun Mahathir then says, yeah lah, okay lah, if you want me to be Prime Minister, I'll be Prime Minister again. So it's a bit unfair, that the media keeps on pressing him.
Right.
And the old gentleman then answers just, to get people to just quiet down about the topic. Why do we take that position? Because to some extent we agree with Dr. Jeyakumar. Because there is too much emphasis over who is Prime Minister. But the real politics is that even the young ask the same question. Now, we have a real fundamental problem in saying that which is the best Prime Minister of the lot of them. Because either they have no credibility or they are proven failures. I mean, we have two former Prime Ministers, which in the eyes of many people are failures, who are candidates of Prime Minister. We have one former.
So you're talking about Muhyiddin and Ismail Sabri lah. Okay.
And then you have what do you call it? You have one former finance minister that was effectively removed from the finance minister function where in the middle of the Asian crisis because his prescriptions were ineffective. Right. And that was before the political crisis, which is what everyone forgot. That he was a failure as an MOF during the crisis as well. And then in the end, we have another now emerging true candidate for PM from Barisan Nasional, Zahid Hamidi, who everyone cannot understand how he can even be Prime Minister when he has so many, cases.
Polls show only 2% support for him.
Look, this is really a key issue because, the people who taught us to look at the Prime Minister all this time has been Barisan Nasional. No other party in the country has been pushing this notion that go for the Prime Minister. We are a Westminster system government. We should be looking at the party in totality. There is locality in the choice of MP. But Barisan Nasional, through its dominance of politics over the many years, have been pushing the idea, look at the Prime Minister is the guy that will carry you along. Suddenly now, we have a situation where Barisan Nasional is playing, which is the Prime Minister? Zahid Hamidi is saying, maybe no. And then Ismail Sabri had to come up with a statement just yesterday saying, I am still the candidate of Prime Minister, but everyone goes like, tak ada lah, no possible lah.
Still the poster boy. Ini cabarannya kerana strukturnya begitu. Kerana kita Westminster party system. Tetapi ini kelihatannya mengaburi naratif yang diingini oleh awam.
Ya, tapi masalahnya sekarang adalah kerana isu baru-baru ni sekali dua ni, dan ini sebenarnya amat memfrasatkan saya. Sebab pada saya isu-isu yang patut dibangkitkan tak boleh terkekang dalam arena politikal siapa nak jadi PM. Sebab itu membawa gambaran politik kita terlalu cetek sekali pemikiran. Personality based. Jadi kalau kita tengok isu dia timbul pun kenapa? Sebab isu watikah kena ada aku janji dan sebagainya kan. Jadi akhirnya isu siapa you undi tu sudah jadi. Kalau undi calon PN, undi Zahid. Ini dah mula dah orang dah cakap. Undi calon undi KJ di Bunga Sungai Buloh equals to undi Najib. Undi Syahrul Hamdan di Alor Gajah, undi Zahid. Everyone is saying this. Jadi sekarang masalah terbesar BN sampai terpaksa Ismail Sabri keluarkan statement tu adalah dia punya persepsi terhadap orang yang sepatutnya secara natural menjadi calon Perdana Menteri Barisan Nasional is non-viable.
Itu masalah yang sedang dihadapi. Kita ada 2 minit berbaki, mungkin tinggal 1, tapi kita sangat fleksibel, luas dalam menangani. Saya nak tanya soalan yang sama kita tanya kepada 2 calon batu sebelumnya. Isytihar harta, calon pejuang. Bila nak isytihar?
Okey. Saya tak pasti. Saya akan bawa ni ke hadapan. Kita kena isytihar harta secepat mungkin.
Sebelum
mengundi lah.
Sebelum mengundi. Okey, baik. Kita tanya dengan Dr. Jeyakumar. Doktor, calon PSM, isytihar harta bila?
Saya ingat minggu ini kita akan buat. Mungkin esok akan kita akan buat.
Okay.
How come these two gentlemen so easy? No issue, no legal issue. We don't need to do that.
Tak ada. Sebab apa? Kita bukan calon. Dan pada masa sama, bila saya bercakap macam ni pun, masalah kita sekarang di Pejuang adalah saya boleh cakap tentang calon pejuang dalam GTA. Yang itu perbincangan yang kita adakan sekarang. Saya tak boleh volunteer, memang semua akan buat. Tapi yang lain-lain ni, yang daripada Parti Putra, daripada komponen-komponen GTA. Ini saya tak pasti sama ada mereka akan setuju.
Okay, now that you mention Putra, is Ibrahim Ali's seat a hot seat in your opinion?
It's a hot seat because it's Ibrahim Ali.
Bukan soal tempatnya itu ya.
Who are his opponents?
I'm sorry?
Who are his
Oh,
opponents?
I mean, it's the normal traditional PAS candidate that will probably be the most prominent lah. I mean, the thing is, Kelantan has pretty much created a map where the incumbency is pretty much set. If it's Jeli, if it's Ketereh, it's UMNO that's to beat. Some of it menjurus pada tokoh. Macam contoh, the fact that Anwar Musa is not contesting. The fact that Tok Pa punya situation as well in Jeli before, when he jumped. So there are issues around that. But by and large, you will always be against the entrenched incumbent when it comes to Kelantan.
Right. Okay. We mentioned personality politics. We mentioned tokoh. Now, Dr. Jeyakumar, I think this question is ideal for you because I personally feel that, like Akram says, too shallow. You talk about personalities. This is not a popularity contest. It's not about who is better looking. For me, politics is about policies, right? So an ideological party like PSM, I think that's great. Now, but your party has been around for so long. How is there a plan to overcome this, inability for the local voters to think about ideology, right? Because it seems to me only your party seems to be talking about ideology.
Okay, our party is under a tremendous handicap because since 1970, there hasn't been very strong representation from left parties. The Labour Party kind of was collapsed, was actually harassed by the ISA and they collapsed at the end of the 60s. Only had the PRM. So since 1970, both the government and the opposition were based on either ethnic or religious parties. For 50 years, we have had an education to the Malaysian public, along ethnic lines, ethnic politics. And this has led to a very polarized kind of policy in Malaysia, where the non-Malays and the Malays are so divergent in what they perceive as their interests and what they want from the politicians. So any PM now is going to come in and see how can we overcome such a polarized situation. I mean, how do we handle the fact that the Malay community, in terms of socioeconomic, in terms of economic performance, still requires some affirmative action. But at the same time, a lot of non-Malays feel they've been discriminated against, they've been marginalized by the quota system that has taken place for the last 50 years under the NEP and all that. On one side, you have Malays very unhappy with it and they want complete stop of the quota system, of the NEP and of all these kind of policies. But at the same time, you've got to accept the number of people among the Malays in the youth trust, the G20, is larger than their population share. The participation of the trust in the SME sector, which is where the G20 comes from, is also quite disappointing. So how do you address that? Using affirmative action, but so that's a big problem. And affirmative action also has been hijacked. And a lot of the affirmative action is being hijacked by the elite within the Malay community.
Okay, Dr. Jeyakumar, thanks for that. I will pivot to Akram.
If I can just jump in and follow the narrative that he was following also to some
yes, so if I may just pose the question first and you can handle that at the same time.
Sure.
Now, when Dr. Jeyakumar was speaking, he mentioned PRM and I was a member of PRM and then I remembered my comrade, Rostam Sani.
Yes.
He wrote a book.
Yes.
And he said, it is time that we have Malaysian nationalism, not Malay nationalism, Malaysian nationalism. Can PEJUANG be the party that brings forward this idea rather than all this Malay parties, can we have Malaysian nationalism?
To be honest, our much maligned leader, as an architect of Wawasan 2020, foresaw Malaysia leading towards that.
Leading towards
Malaysian nationalism.
Malaysian nationalism.
Okay.
If you look at Wawasan 2020, part of the end game is basically this, not berteras kepada bangsa, tetapi berteras pada negara. You know, in terms of kerakyatan, in terms of perjuangan, in terms of mindset, social justice dan sebagainya. So, as the architect or as the author of Wawasan 2020, which was everyone perceived was to be achieved by the year 2020. The perfect vision was meant to be 2020, right?
Yeah.
The perfect vision was meant to be that. Correct.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing that actually keeps him going because of his anger. It's not even disappointment. Tun Mahathir actually carries this anger that the vision leading towards a Malaysia that is truly united and hence not having all these hang-ups around race, around religion.
But he keeps playing the race card. People blame him
but
for the
yeah,
racism.
but this is the thing. When he plays the race card, who is he really attacking? If you look at the way that he's talking, we are consistent in saying that the problem now is the Malay leaders that are causing problems with the Malays. Melayu bunuh Melayu. You see, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to recreate what was intended to be Malay leadership, not Malay superiority. You know, even the narrative has been hijacked. You know, it was never Malay superiority, Ketuanan Melayu. It was always kepimpinan Melayu.
Okay.
Malay leadership. So there is no Malay leadership among the main parties anymore.
Alright.
Either the credibility is not there or the spirit is not there. So the intention is to re-engender that Malay leadership. And leading off to what Professor Jeyakumar Dr. Jeyakumar was saying just now as well. Even the way or the perspective that we should be looking at, it should be different.
Yeah.
You know, we when you looked at the initiatives that were instituted during DEB in particular, also during the time of the Mahathir, you had Amanah Saham Nasional to help people invest. Amanah Saham Nasional is so big now. The second tallest building in the world will soon be Malay-owned, effectively, because that Menara 118 is all from money from PNB. You know, the majority of the money is actually Malay rural area, Malay urban poor punya money through the ASN system. So the system does work. Whether the money goes back to them through dividends is sufficient or not. Okay. Now the question is though, should we start looking not just in terms of equity, but should we shift our mindset towards a disposable income? Okay.
Yes.
And all disposable income is about money that you can use then to invest, whether on your own or not.
Exactly.
Now, what kills us is that the narrative around ownership kills a lot of us, because when you educate people, we talk about you must own a house. Why?
Yeah.
And now real estate prices are so high, and you have a situation where a lot of children are staying with parents, and in the rural areas, you know.
Yeah.
I would prefer for us to actually see a situation like what you have in Germany. In Germany, you have good wealth. 80% of the population
They don't
doesn't even care about owning anything in terms of land or in terms of real estate. But there's enough disposable income so that they have rich pensions, good monetary capability, they can go on holidays, they can have good education, etc. Their universal right includes free education. So things like that is how you have to shift the narrative.
Yes.
You're going to say again probably that the party doesn't carry this, but you know we have to.
Because coming from you, I wish you contesting.
Yes, exactly.
But maybe there's a blessing in this, in that at least I'm not going to be bogged down from being a candidate.
I caution you already, Jonson. Having him and Dr. Jeyakumar half an hour is not enough. Setengah jam tak cukup. Jadi kita akan bawa semula mereka dalam rancangan yang spesifik. Bukan Malaysia di persimpangan. Bukan.
Can still have 2 minutes, right?
Boleh. 2 minit konsesi boleh.
Do you have any aspirations to lead the party in the future?
Wow.
I like point blank question.
I'll answer it. Look, I come from a long line of leadership in communities. On my father's side, from Tengku Cik Ditiro and Aceh. On my mother's side, from first governor of Aceh, Tengku Daud Beri. So I'm talking about 6-7 generations ago. So I think from the time of my late father, we decided that to aim for the ultimate leadership, probably not, because we don't know how to compromise beyond certain point. So there is a certain moral rigidity that I have, and is carried by most of my family, not all, that are in politics. Mind you, one of my second uncles is Tan Sri Badaruddin, so the chairman of UMNO. So it may not be true with everyone in the family, but with ultimate leadership in this age, there has to be compromise.
Saya cuma nak beritahu Jonson je, I was told, saya dimaklumkan Akram secara peribadinya tak mau bertanding. Bukan tidak dinamakan. Tapi itu perlu masa yang lain untuk kita gunakan nanti, tak apa.
Okay.
Would you like to ask the same question to Dr.
But to be fair, let's just to ensure that that's addressed properly. I felt that I could contribute more to the national narrative for Pejuang and for GTA without contesting.
Thank you. So, Dr. Jeyakumar, a little while back, I read an article you wrote. He mentioned the word narrative, and you specifically said the problem with Malaysians is we are all having different narratives. Can you just share that with us? This will probably be the final point. This is a very big thing. Unfortunately, it's not really about hot seats, but well, the whole country is hot right now. I think we need to be clear on our narrative.
Yeah, I think the narrative that the PSM would like to develop is that there is another dimension, the dimension of imperialism, the fact that it's wage suppression in Malaysia because of the way in which the global chains outsource jobs to us. If we don't take their low wages that they offer to us, then they'll go to Thailand, go to Vietnam. That's a big issue that hardly any of the other parties actually looks at. They just thought it would be a very cool paradigm, but we are ignoring the fact, we're not aware of the fact that there is a north-south divide as well, where corporations from the north actually control our wages by paying us much lower for the components we produce. They pay us what 1/6 or 1/8 what those components cost in Germany or in US. And if we ask for a little bit more, then they threaten they're going to ship to Vietnam or to Thailand. Now, these are issues that we really have to address. We have to bring back the idea of Bandung. Bandung, which in 1955 we talked about. Some of those issues are how countries in the south have to get together to kind of retain some of the wealth that is created. So the flow of wealth from Asia and Africa has continued to the largest corporations of the West, even despite us getting independent. And these are the kinds of issues that PSM would like to bring to the table, to the public, and say, look, this kind of fighting about racial issues among us, there are larger issues as well, which you need to address. Talk about building a better Malaysia for all of us.
Kami nak ucapkan terima kasih kepada kedua tetamu kita. Jonson, saya sudah menyatakan untuk dia ada beberapa template rancangan kita ni. Kita perlu fleksibel satu. Apa dia sebut dia akan trickle down membentuk satu rancangan lain. You have to come again, both of you, in a different setting. Supaya kita bincang benda yang besar ini dalam masa yang lebih selesa. Kita boleh saja perbanyakkan.
Dia kalau benda tu besar dan especially horizontal direction,
I don't mean it literally. Tapi inilah masalahnya kerana saya yakin menjelang 2 minggu yang akan datang ni untuk kita bincangkan idea-idea besar ni, dia sudah tidak ada traction. Now is not the time. Kalau kita kata nak ubah, kita kena fikirkan PRU 15 ini, dia akan lihat apa adanya.
Actually, my hope was that PSM or PEJUANG, take these big ideas and translate it into, bite-sized chunks that the consumers or the voters can understand. Right? All these things are not just big; they have huge impact on the ground. But this is my hint to Dr. Jeyakumar and to PEJUANG. Please make these issues understood, and then when you speak to the whole country, deal with the thing. But
Dr. Jeyakumar dan PSM saya nampak sudah begitu pendekatannya agak lama. Tapi saya sebut banyak kali tadi, saya dengar ini daripada Akram, tapi saya tak dengar daripada PEJUANG. Jadi dua benda yang berbeza. Walau macam mana pun, terima kasih kepada kedua-duanya. We have to let Dr. Jeyakumar go. Terima kasih Doktor. Akram masih ada di studio, saya tak boleh nak keluarkan dia. Kekal. Cuma kita ada JR, jurnalis rakyat. Jadi citizen journalist kita. Hari ini kita ada Farhan Abdul Aziz, Farhan sudah bersedia, Suhaili? Farhan, memandu nampaknya. Ini akan jadi macam Tian Chua. Farhan, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam, Syed. Apa khabar?
Baik, Alhamdulillah. Ni kat mana ni berkempen?
Ni on the way ke Berengas.
Padang Berengas. Okey, apa cerita? Ya, silakan.
Okey, saya berada di Pilihan Raya sejak hari Jumaat hingga kini. Dan daripada hari Jumaat tu saya memerhatikan banyak perkara lah berkaitan dengan raya ni. Saya sentuh 3 perkara lah. Yang pertama tentang konteks yang raya. Tadi saya di Kedah, saya nampak keadaan raya di Kedah tu mood dia sejuk sikit. Dia
Sejuk,
punya perang bendera dia tak nampak sangat. Kalau ada bendera yang dipasang, bendera warna biru sahaja yang banyak.
Ya, biru tua, biru muda. Kena tanya
Dua biru.
Dua biru. Okey.
Ya, yang merah tu ada tapi tak banyak. Jadi tu lah saya punya saranan pada yang tim merah tu supaya banyakkan bendera supaya masyarakat nampak kekuatan mereka kalau mereka nak menang lah. Okey, yang kedua tentang malam saya berada di penamaan calon di Parlimen Larut. Saya berada di pejabat tanah selama. Juga saya nampak ada empat tim di sana. Daripada 4 tim tu, 2 tim tu kalau Jonson, kalau bendera tu boleh diukur sebagai kriteria kemenangan, tentu 2 tim ni akan menang. Iaitu 2 tim biru. Tim yang berwarna merah dengan tim yang berwarna lain tu kalau diukur bendera lah. Tak nampak lah.
Larut.
Hamzah Zainuddin.
Dia balik pada betul. Ya, Hamzah Zainuddin. Okey, kemudian isu kanak-kanak. Yang ni saya nampak macam agak serius lah. Saya tak tahu ini ada kaitan dengan ada efek, ada kaitan dengan undang-undang ataupun tidak. Kanak-kanak di sana di semasa penamaan calon tu diperagakan dengan pakaian parti. Dan juga mereka pegang bendera seolah-olah mereka tu diminta oleh ibu ayah mereka untuk berkempen. Saya tak pasti sama itu legal atau tidak dalam konteks SPR lah. Macam tu.
Itu di mana? Itu
semalam di Larut. Saya nampak semalam di Larut. Saya ada share, ada footage saya share. Ada nampak kanak-kanak pegang bendera parti, bendera lari dan sebagainya macam tu. Dan yang keduanya semalam Larut malam di Al-Star. Saya dalam satu pagi macam tu saya nampak kanak-kanak yang fizikal dia bawah 18 tahun pasang bendera. Yang tu macam mana? Kalau boleh saya nak tanya SBR lah. Itu yang saya nampak atau saya observe lah semalam. Lupa. Masa saya sembang dengan penduduk kampung, ada beberapa isu yang diorang kongsikan dengan kami. Antara isu tentang simbol pilihan raya. Sebelum ni makcik-makcik ni dia maklum dengan simbol mata ataupun simbol bulan. Tapi sekarang ni simbol mata dan simbol bulan tu dah tak ada dalam kertas undi tu. Dah ada hanya tulisan dan hanya warna saja. Yang tu bagi makcik-makcik atau pakcik-pakcik yang terbiasa dengan simbol tu, mereka rasa keliru dan mungkin ada masalah lah masa nak mengundi nanti macam tu. Dan yang kedua tentang pertembungan yang banyak pertembungan ni sampai 7 sampai 10. Contoh di Parlimen Batu ada 10 kerusi dipertandingkan dan di Al-Star semalam ada 7 kerusi. Kata orang-orang di situ lah, ini bukan demokrasi tapi demokrasi. Itu dah crazy. Tapi itu pandangan mereka. Sisi pandangan lain yang dapat dikongsi adalah itulah bukti yang masyarakat Malaysia ni dah tak terikat dah. Diorang bebas nak bertanding atas nama apa pun, atas skala apa, atas simbol apa. Kalau dulu mereka terikat dengan beberapa simbol, tapi kali ini mereka dah bebas untuk to do anything, to participate dalam pilihan raya. Itu bacaan itu ada
something? No. Okay. Farhan, lepas ini akan ke mana pula?
Lepas ini akan ke Penadengas, kemudian akan ke Sungai Siput dan esok akan ke Bagan Datuk.
Okay, ini semua kawan-kawan Bagan Datuk. Semalam sepatutnya Fazril melaporkan dia Bagan Datuk, tapi dia bagi alasan di luar laluan dia. Tak apalah, kita kumpulan My Undi ni saya nak ucapkan terima kasih. Kita sudah ada 2 laporan buat masa ini. Jadi My Undi akan memberikan bacaan mereka di lapangan. Ni kelompok anak-anak muda yang cuba bergerak secara independen membuat bacaan dia. Johnson.
Thank you. No.
Okey, terima kasih Farhan. Besok insya-Allah ada lagi My Undi membuat tinjauannya di lapangan. Dan sekali lagi terima kasih nak ucapkan pada Akram. Tak settle banyak soalan-soalan yang kita besar nak tanya kemudian.
Whilst you're still here, you also mentioned the issue of lambang
Logo,
tadi, but at least you guys have a big machinery. You have resources to do your branding and marketing and whatnot. I just want to level the playing field a little bit. I heard that the lambang for Siti Kasim in Batu are glasses. Isn't that so appropriate? She's got those big glasses, right?
Purposely, memang dia memilih itu.
And then the other independent candidates, right? I think there's one in Ravi in Wangsa Maju, KJ John in Petaling Jaya, and of course Taufik Ismail in Bagan Datuk. I don't know whether this is a coincidence. They picked the key. Maybe the independence is the key to a better Malaysia. What do you think?
Okay, the key to you're I think alluding to also what's happened in Australia recently with the Teal Party, where independents took where independents took something like 10 seats, and under the banner of a quasi platform called Teal, right? The issue with independence has always been gentler. Whether you have the machinery, the brand name recognition, all that matters. The second problem actually is recognition. But the recognition isn't so much the brand of the lambang. The recognition is really around what the person represents.
Yes.
Our candidate, PEJUANG candidate for Teluk Intan is Amir Kushairi. He was the independent candidate for PRK Slim, right?
Okay.
So he came in under the lambang pokok, the tree, right? And we were hopeful, and we achieved the target of at least being a protest vote that didn't hilang deposit.
I see.
So he didn't lose his deposit. That gave us a signal that even an independent can get some traction as long as there is enough momentum behind it around issues. And of course, he was not even from Tanjung Malim.
Right.
He was not from Slim. He was from Teluk Intan. So with Tun Mahathir's name behind it, with Pakatan Harapan also being supportive,
Right.
This is quite important, that there is some sort of machinery and some sort of recognition that can be borrowed. In the case of Amir Kushairi and Slim was Tun Mahathir lah.
Right.
Now, moving forward, this is the reality of branding. Without sufficient time, you are only left with money.
Yes.
And when I say money, I don't mean buying votes. I mean money to be able to purchase the machinery,
Yes.
to move it. And with this question about people worried about corruption, it becomes a matter of question, or questions will come up with the electorate. Oh, banyak je bendera dia orang ni. Banyak je dia punya banting, banyak besar je kemah dia.
Datang duit.
So, mana datang duit? So, even if you have the money, it ends up going back against you. So, if Siti Kasim had been working in Batu for the past year and a half or 2 years, I say she'd have a decent chance, as much as Syarif Samad did when he did the
Johor
Baru.
Right.
That was also a
As
kunci, right?
independent.
I don't know.
I cannot recall the logo.
Logo as well. But Syarif Samad, it was because not just the UMNO protest vote, really, it's because of him. Because he was recognized, you see. So it is a bit of a shame in the case of Siti Kasim that whilst she was the earliest of any of the candidates even to declare for Batu, even that was not soon enough. You know. So I think let's, rather than be immediately disappointed and surrender with the notion that independent candidates have no room, I believe the independent candidates eventually will have room.
Mungkin ini akan melihat jumlah calon bebas yang paling ramai dalam sejarah.
Betul.
Oh no, that is confirmed already.
Calon bebas.
Yeah.
Tapi pada saya,
yang menang. Maksud saya
yang
calon
menang.
bebas yang akan menang
pada
paling
saya,
ramai.
ruang paling elok untuk kita menyuburkan demokrasi kita sekarang adalah bukannya di Dewan Rakyat, tetapi di Senat. Kalau kita boleh ataupun Dewan Negara,
Dewan Negara.
Sebab kalau kita ambil Dewan Negara sekarang, Dewan Negara sekarang semuanya bukannya diundi, semuanya dipilih
Dilantik
oleh tempat-tempat yang menang. Jadi itu yang nak katakan Dewan Negara kita tu pincang, sebab dia tak berfungsi sebenar-benarnya.
Dia bukan menyemak dan imbang.
Sebab dia dimodalkan dengan House of Lords. Padahal House of Lords dari segi kepelbagaiannya lebih kaya daripada Dewan Negara kita.
So it's appointed by the state governments, right?
And also by the winning federal government.
Right.
Jadi kalau kita ambil pendekatan, sebab negara Australia, Dewan Negaranya dipilih juga oleh rakyat. Cuma cara pemilihan tu membuka ruang lebih. Jadi kalau kita tengok pergerakan supaya calon bebas dan juga calon parti kecil mula menyusup masuk politik di Australia, dia menyusup masuk melalui Dewan Negara.
Okay, so we make this a bit educational too.
Okay.
So the state government, can they appoint a senator or Dewan Negara member from outside the state, or it must be someone from the same state? Let's say PEJUANG wins Kedah, can you appoint someone from outside?
They can appoint anyone they like.
Tak ada masalah.
So I also can be
yes.
right.
Dan itu sedang berlaku sekarang.
And besides, in Malaysia, it's very easy to do that. You just change your IC.
Itu saya kata reformasi keseluruhan tu banyak perlu kita lakukan.
No, I think it's very important also. There is a lot of reform that's required. I mean, arguably, one of the reasons myself and Jamil Khair lost in Jerai in PRU 14 was because there were 3,000 external voters coming in to vote for PAS. Okay, we also had some external voters coming in to vote for PKR masa itulah as Pakatan Harapan. UMNO BN a bit less, but there is an overabundance. Where are these people coming from?
Too easy to change my card.
And it's showing now what we found out in Jerai. The reason why is because they used to go to school there. Right. They used to go to the religious schools there.
Jadi dia ada alamat my card dia di situ.
So we are going to talk to who? Ad Harun.
Kita akan panggil
we
Ad
are
Harun.
going to ask him about SPR and all that. Bila tu
I've raised this question with Ad before. So he better be schooled enough to answer.
Betul saya kata Jonson. Ada topik-topik kita ni dia akan perlu panjang, perlu modulate. Kita perlu modular. Kerana mengasuh rakyat
macam
tentang
Lego
dia kena semua itulah. Separation of powers bukan hanya soal SPR, FPRM, pejabat AG juga. Bagaimana nak melakukannya semua tu.
In fact to me, the oversight, if we can actually democratize Dewan Negara, that is a more appropriate and actually make it a mix of what is the House of Lords and what is the Australian Senate. It is better for governance rather than the Dewan Rakyat. Because Dewan Rakyat is the massive seat towards the legislature. It is still problematic. But even Dewan Negara, we have, like for instance, in the House of Lords, you have the law lords. Maksudnya hakim-hakim besar dan bekas-bekas hakim besar automatically jadi ahli Dewan Negara. Ketua-ketua agensi-agensi yang dihormati, macam contohnya bekas ketua polis, ketua angkatan
G25. Can you imagine the G25 in Dewan Negara?
Betul. And then you have a mix. And then ada juga yang diundi seperti macam di Australia. Jadi dari segi menaik tarafkan mereka di kalangan mereka yang diundi dan di kalangan mereka yang paling dihormati di kalangan bukan ahli politik. I think it will be very powerful.
Di dalam antara rancangan yang selalu Akram kami undang, bukan di dalam studio Kudus ataupun di Malaysia 360, kita selalu kata we are not short of ideas. Tetapi kita perlu tanya kenapa idea-idea yang dah dibincang lama ni tak dapat traction. Itu by itself is one topic.
Sebab masa tu pejuang belum wujud.
Pandai dia mengambil minit-minit terakhir ni.
Is Pejuang open to non-Malays at the moment?
Well, Pejuang actually Pejuang is actually very studious in not having Malays in the party. But we are open to alliances with non-Malays.
I see.
So the intention is, of course, if any of the other parties are willing to come together with us, then we would actually be able to partner. Unfortunately, the time was too short for us to have partner parties which are not.
So, for example, if Gerakan wants to jump over, they can jump over.
No, not an issue.
Walaupun dia mengaku merah itu menggambarkan kecenderungan politiknya, tapi dengan soalan Jonson tadi, bagi borang alliance dia mungkin mengisi.
Aku nak declare ni. Aku nak how to put it? You know, the Chinese always say we have socialism with Chinese characteristics. I think we should have socialism with Malaysian nationalistic ideology.
Well, I'll explain to you a bit about why we have this particular problem with PEJUANG not being multiracial. It's because when we formed Bersatu,
Right.
Because a lot of us are actually ex-Bersatu, right? So when we formed Bersatu, we were very studious in it being Bumi Putra Party.
Okay.
So we had Kadazan, we had, what do you call it?
Peribumi semua lah.
Siam,
Yeah.
you know, all of them. But suddenly when we were in PEJUANG and Bersatu was trying to get more MPs, suddenly Bersatu became multiracial.
Yes.
So some of the people from Bersatu that came to us from the Siamese community, for
Right.
instance, they said, "We join you guys because we consider ourselves Bumi Putra and you are the first guys who acknowledge us as Bumi Putra."
Right.
So forget about Bersatu. We're going to PEJUANG now.
Right.
So now we can't betray our Bumi Putra friends, which were before this disenfranchised.
Right.
In fact, one of our partners, Iman, for instance, is part of GTA. A key element of their struggle is the acknowledgement of Indian Muslims as Malays.
Yeah.
That's actually a constitutional issue in Malaysia. They are Indian Muslims and they are berbudayakan Melayu. But they are not Malays. Some of them still carry Indian in their passport.
Then the Nyonya Baba should also be considered Bumi Putra.
Exactly. I mean, I had a Portuguese descendant friend in school before, Fabian.
Yeah.
He's Bumi Putra.
Johnson, now you say why I insisted on having Akram on our show. The challenge is only coming from him.
Yes.
If we were to invite any other guys from PEJUANG, we may not get that kind of
So do us
articulation.
a favor.
Yeah.
Please tell Dr. M we'd like to have him here.
Well, I can ask. But, you know...
Special for Tun, we can even
He's
bring
got-
all equipment to his place.
We will fly our whole crew.
We have
to
our flying
Langkawi.
squad.
I can ask. He's in his Langkawi hot seat, of course.
No problem, we
But
can go to
I can
Langkawi.
answer you this.
Hmm.
All this thing about championing, making sure that the Bumi Putra includes golongan Siam, especially, for instance, right? This is all Mukhris is doing as well.
Yeah, doing is one thing, but explaining it articulately is something else. Tak apalah, itu nanti. Lepas tu saya kata saya perlu lama dengan dia.
Yes.
Jadi bab reform ni semua kita akan bersama. Dah pukul 7.
More than 1 hour already.
Itulah, janji dia kata nak setengah jam dia yang tanya soalan-soalan tambahan. Itulah masalahnya bila kita buat online. Kalau di TV dia sejam-sejam lah. Langgar dia tutup lampu. Ini tak boleh langgar je. Okey, terima kasih Akram dan Dr. Jeyakumar tadi sudah pun meninggalkan studio kita. Jangan lupa Saban hari pukul berapa? 6 petang. 6 petang.
Yes.
Kita jumpa lagi besok insya-Allah. Selagi hayat dikandung badan insya-Allah.
So thank you for watching. Join us again tomorrow.
Saya Munawar dan
Jonson.
signing off.